This city is 9,000 years old, and people only left it 75 years ago. What if cities were never supposed to be above ground? Across the world, 6 places where ancient engineering still works, 2,000 years after the empires that built them forgot they existed. No myths, no lost civilizations, just stone, careful observation, and an understanding of nature that has outlived kingdoms. Let's start. Our first city is the Sassi di Matera in southern Italy. At first glance, Matera looks like a city stacked on a hilltop. Look closer, and almost everything you see is carved into the rock. For nearly 11,000 years, people have lived in these limestone cliffs. Archaeological evidence places human occupation here as far back as 9000 BCE, making Matera one of the oldest continuously inhabited places on Earth. The homes are called the Sassi, the stones, but calling them caves misses the point. These were carefully engineered houses, cut directly into the porous limestone, connected by stairways, courtyards, churches, workshops, and an invisible hydraulic network hidden beneath the streets. The real genius of Matera was water. Southern Italy never had reliable rivers. Rain came seasonally and disappeared as fast as it fell. Other ancient cities would have starved for it. Matera adapted. Almost every home became part of a giant collection system. Rainwater flowed from rooftops into stone channels, then into private cisterns carved beneath the houses themselves. As the water filtered through the limestone, it became cleaner before reaching storage. Here is the part that matters. Individual cisterns were linked into neighborhood networks. If one family ran low, the system shifted water sideways through the rock. The entire district functioned as a single living organism. Families lived continuously inside the Sassi until 1952, when the Italian government ordered them out because poverty and disease had become widespread. The engineering had survived. The social conditions had not. In 1993, UNESCO recognized Matera as a World Heritage Site. In 2019, it became European Capital of Culture. The city never truly stopped working. It simply found a new purpose. Our next destination lies beneath the volcanic landscape of central Turkey. From the surface, Kaymakli gives almost nothing away. A few stone buildings, gentle hills, fields stretching toward the horizon. There is little to suggest that beneath those fields sits one of the largest underground cities ever constructed. Kaymakli is one of roughly 36 underground cities carved into the soft volcanic tuff of Cappadocia. Its earliest phases are linked to the Phrygians, 8th to 7th century BCE, but the city expanded dramatically during the Byzantine period, between the 4th and 12th centuries, when repeated Arab-Byzantine conflicts forced entire communities to rethink what a safe city should look like. The answer was astonishing. Instead of building higher walls, they built deeper homes. Today, visitors can explore 4 levels. Archaeologists know the city extends through 8. Inside, the passages widen into stables, kitchens, wineries, storage rooms, workshops, and even a church with a carved nave and 2 apses. This was a functioning village, designed for months of occupation, not days. Imagine leading your children down a narrow staircase as danger approached. Animals followed. Grain was already stored below. Water was waiting. Neighbors closed the entrance, lit their lamps, and life simply continued underground while armies searched an empty landscape overhead. That level of preparation demanded extraordinary engineering, beginning with the air. Ventilation shafts plunged nearly 80 meters straight through the rock, drawing clean air into the lowest chambers. Even with thousands of people sheltering below, the city stayed breathable. because the builders trusted the natural movement of air more than any mechanical solution. Defense was just as careful. At key choke points, enormous circular stone doors, each weighing about 500 kilograms, could be rolled into place from the inside. Once sealed, they turned wide corridors into walls that attackers could not push, could not break, could not even see clearly. Every hallway slowed an invader, every corner favored the people who already knew the city. If you love how ancient engineering still defies modern explanation, subscribe to MegaBuild Archive. We're building the largest video archive of the world's lost megastructures. New episode every week. A few kilometers from Kaymakli, another hidden world took the idea of survival one chilling step further. If Kaymakli was built to survive a siege, Ozkonak was built to make invaders regret entering it. Its discovery came late. In 1972, a local farmer named Latif Achar noticed that water from his fields kept vanishing into the ground. He followed the source and uncovered passages leading into a city no one had fully documented before. Ozkonak descends nearly 40 meters through the volcanic rock. Archaeologists have identified 10 levels. Only 4 are open to visitors. Tourist brochures sometimes claim the city could shelter 60,000 people. Historians consider that far too high. A realistic estimate is 5,000 to 8,000. Like Kaymakli, it had living quarters, ventilation shafts, kitchens, wells. But Ozkonak introduced something almost no other underground city possessed. It wasn't only designed to hide, it was designed to fight. Throughout the tunnel system, engineers placed deliberate choke points, passages so narrow that attackers had no room to spread out. Then, directly above several of these bottlenecks, the builders cut small circular openings into the ceiling. At first glance, they look insignificant. In reality, they were devastating. When defenders heard attackers approaching below, they poured hot sand through those holes. Hot sand was a terrifying weapon. Unlike water, it did not cool quickly. Unlike oil, it required no preparation. Tiny burning grains slipped beneath helmets, through clothing, into boots, between pieces of armor. And they kept burning long after contact, forcing attackers into panicked retreat through the very tunnels that had trapped everyone behind them. The weapon wasn't based on overwhelming force. It relied on understanding physics. Gravity did the work. The architecture became the weapon. The enemy's lack of space became their greatest weakness. Matera mastered water. Kaymakli mastered survival. Ozkonak mastered defense. But our next destination solved a different problem. How do you hide not a family, not a village, but an entire town, without leaving so much as a trail of smoke above the trees? Northern France doesn't seem like the place where an entire town could disappear. The countryside around Naours is gentle, rolling farmland, small villages, quiet forests. Nothing suggests that 28 meters below the surface, an underground refuge once stood ready to shelter an entire community. Naours began not as a city, but as a quarry. As early as the 3rd century, during the Gallo-Roman period, workers excavated limestone from beneath the Picardy countryside. Most abandoned quarries slowly collapse. Naours found a second life. As northern France endured wave after wave of violence, Viking raids, the 100 Years' War, the 30 Years' War, the empty passages became something more valuable than stone. They became a place to survive. Generation after generation expanded the network, until it grew into a hidden town containing nearly 2 kilometers of tunnels and around 300 chambers. Historians estimate the network could shelter roughly 3,000 people, with their animals. An entire village, simply gone. But disappearing created another problem: smoke. Every hidden settlement needs fire. Every fire creates smoke. And smoke rising from the middle of an empty forest would have revealed everything. Naours answered with one of the most subtle engineering tricks of any underground city. The chimney shafts were not vertical. They were angled, roughly 30 degrees off true vertical, and they emerged inside the dense forest canopy 28 meters above. The angle did two things at once. It hid the openings from any distant observer because the smoke did not punch through the canopy in a straight column. And it dispersed what little smoke remained through the leaves, where it mixed with natural air currents until it looked, from a distance, like ordinary morning mist. The goal wasn't to eliminate the evidence, it was to make the evidence look ordinary. Centuries later, Naours hosted a new chapter. During the First World War, Australian soldiers used the tunnels as billets on the Western Front. Thousands carved their names, hometowns, and small messages into the limestone walls, the largest known concentration of First World War graffiti anywhere on the front. One underground city, two completely different histories, connected by the same stone walls. But how do you keep an entire city alive when its only water lies 50 meters below solid rock? That was the problem faced by our fifth city, Orvieto, central Italy. Orvieto sits on a flat-topped tufa cliff that rises 300 meters above the surrounding plain. From a distance, it looks like a medieval Italian town with a dramatic foundation. From below, you see windows, openings, small holes punched into the cliff face, and you realize the foundation itself is hollowed out. Orvieto grew layer by layer, century after century, civilization after civilization. Today, archaeologists have mapped more than 1,200 cavities beneath the city. Wells, cisterns, olive presses, dovecotes, quarries, storage chambers, passageways that quietly supported life above for over 2,000 years. It began with the Etruscans. By the 6th century BCE, they recognized the advantages of the volcanic plateau. The cliffs provided defenses, but they also created a problem: water. Living on top of a high plateau meant reliable springs were almost out of reach. So the Etruscans did something deliberate. Instead of bringing water upward through machinery that did not yet exist, they dug downward, deep into the rock. Some well shafts descended nearly 50 meters before reaching groundwater. Along the curved walls, workers carved small foot niches directly into the stone, a vertical staircase where men climbed down every day carrying tools, ropes, and buckets. Imagine beginning every morning by descending the height of a 15-story building, through a narrow shaft cut entirely by hand. One missed step, one loose stone, one broken rope, and the city's water supply, and perhaps your own life, could disappear together. Those shafts became the heartbeat of Orvieto. When Roman armies eventually threatened the city, reliable access to water let the defenders hold out far longer than many neighboring settlements. The engineering beneath the city proved as important as the walls around it. Our final destination takes us farther back in time, and underground on a scale that almost beggars belief. Not one city, two. Beneath them, thousands of chambers carved by hand. In the low hills of present-day Israel lies the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Beit Guvrin, Maresha. More than 3,500 underground chambers stretch beneath the landscape like an invisible second world. Maresha, the older town, was founded around the 8th century BCE. It flourished during the Hellenistic period as the capital of Idumea. Later, Roman and Byzantine settlements developed above and around it at Beit Guvrin, creating two distinct cities connected by one extraordinary underground landscape. Unlike Cappadocia, where people carved entire homes underground, these chambers had specialized purposes. Vast cisterns collecting rainwater, olive oil presses with massive stone wheels, hundreds of columbaria, chambers filled with thousands of small niches used for raising pigeons. Elsewhere, elegant burial caves preserved some of the finest painted tombs in the region, including the famous Sidonian tomb with its remarkable wall paintings. But the engineering challenge was enormous. The local chalk was wonderfully soft. That made excavation easy. But soft rock creates another problem: weight. Dig too much, remove too many supporting walls, and the ceiling eventually collapses. The ancient builders solved this through geometry rather than brute force. Instead of carving flat ceilings, they shaped most chambers into interconnected, interlocking domes. Each curved ceiling redirected enormous loads sideways through the surrounding rock. Each dome braced the next. The weight shifted through the entire complex instead of pressing down on any single point. Modern structural engineers still rely on exactly this principle. Compression travels naturally through an arch. Nature itself prefers curves. More than 2,000 years later, those decisions are still paying dividends. Despite thousands of excavated chambers, widespread collapse has never defined the site. Every one of these underground cities solved a different problem. Matera mastered water. Kaymakli mastered survival. Ozkonak mastered defense. Naours mastered concealment. Orvieto mastered endurance. Beit Guvrin mastered structure. Different cultures, different centuries, different rocks. Yet every one of them reached the same conclusion. The smartest engineering does not begin by asking how to defeat nature. It begins by asking how to cooperate with it. Look back across all 6 sites, and 3 principles appear again and again. First, they trusted local materials. None of these builders tried to import a different landscape. They learned to understand the one beneath their feet. Second, they valued redundancy over efficiency. One well was never enough. One ventilation shaft was never enough. One escape route was never enough. Modern engineering optimizes. Ancient engineering ensured. When one system failed, another kept working. And third, they knew when to stop. None of these places kept expanding because they could. Once the engineering worked, generations maintained it instead of constantly redesigning it. That may be the deepest reason they still function today, not because they were perfect, but because they were allowed to remain practical. 6 underground cities, thousands of years apart, built by civilizations that never met, yet all reaching the same timeless engineering lesson. The greatest structures are not always the biggest. They are the ones that understand the world they were built within. Empires rose, empires fell, wars came and went. But these underground cities kept doing exactly what they were designed to do. They still work. If modern cities disappeared tomorrow, which of these underground worlds do you think would still be standing 1,000 years from now?